was very disturbed by a recent essay I read by Rod Dreher, conservative columnist who'd spent a weekend in Washington. And he reported that a shocking number of Gen Z Republican staffers are Nick Fuentes fans, that they feel oppressed by the far left. They feel they've been told that they as white men are the problem. They can't get on the housing ladder. They're drowning in debt, and they just want to tear everything down. And there's a certain frisson that they get from breaking taboos. If the left's been telling them everything is a taboo, the youth culture is saying, well, actually now nothing's a taboo, and you can say Hitler was freaking cool, okay? And that's all right because it's part of sticking one big middle finger up at the establishment. What are you seeing on the youth, particularly? Because that is how political change can happen very quickly as soon as one generation matures and goes from college to being congressional staffers to being members of Congress themselves.
Right. Well, first of all, I remember when Rod Dreher wrote that article. I had emailed Rod Dreher early on and was trying to warn him about what was happening. I don't know if I believe that statistic. That statistic was very controversial when that came out, and there was some people who kind of looked into it. There was this journalist, Emily Jashinsky, I think is her name. And she kind of tried to do a deep dive into that and discovered that it's really not true. And also I think that Rod Dreher was using the term groyper as like a catch-all for these radicals, which it's just not an accurate use of the term, because groypers are specific followers of Nick Fuentes, and there are people who are just as radical in this space, but that they're not necessarily part of that clan, part of that cult. So that being said, to answer your question, you hit the nail on the head, and there's some other components to it as well. It's not just that these the youth, particularly the white males, are feeling incredibly economically shortchanged in this environment, and are also embracing a lot of this conspiratorialism because they've been told that it's taboo and that you can't say, you can't talk about these things. But they're also embracing the very terms that the leftists have assigned to them, right? I mean, they've dealt with a decade now of being called racist and toxic and white supremacist just because they're male and they're white and they're Christian, right? So now they're embracing those terms, right? They're lashing out and they're saying,
reclaiming it. They're owning
reclaiming it. They're like, yeah, you want me to be racist? Fine, I am a racist, and this is very understandable when you think of the context of 4 years of a pandemic. People do not realize the psychological effect that this had on the politics of our country.
I have tried to blot that entire period out of my memory.
It's a nightmare, and yet we're still living with the effects of it every single day in America.
What are those effects?
The effects are that you had an entire ecosystem of public collusion to censor and silence not only conservatives, but any apolitical health officials or doctors or scientists who were questioning the pandemic official narrative from the top down. So people who were questioning whether the coronavirus really came from a wet market. Maybe it came from a lab in Wuhan. They said that, bam, they were labeled conspiracy theorists. They were called kooks and cranks, right? And they were not entertained. Really amazing scientists, or doctors, some at Harvard or MIT or Stanford, who were coming out and saying this social distancing stuff is completely arbitrary. 6 feet is not. There's no scientific basis. Questioning the lockdowns. You don't lock down healthy people in a pandemic, you quarantine the sick people. This has never been tried before. Talking about the essentially centralization of power by the governors who really used this disaster, this catastrophe as a way to seize power. And during that time, there were also other things that were happening, like the whole Russiagate scandal, which was a very sinister conspiratorial plot by the Obama campaign and the Clintons to essentially spy on Trump and get the public to believe that he was somehow a Russian asset, which we know is completely bogus. And yet this was the narrative planted in the public for like a whole entire year, right? And then you had the whole Hunter Biden laptop scandal, which was so sinister. The whole like Biden crime family, the whole mafia family that the Bidens have turned into, and how that story was censored by social media right before the election in order to guarantee a Biden win. This whole censorship industrial complex blackpilled so many Americans, not just conservatives. Yes,
bring me into the lingo.
It made us bitter. It made us distrustful of our institutions, of our government, of society as a whole, as the powers that be. It made us feel hopeless, like we don't have any control. We don't have a voice. We don't have, like essentially feeling like our societies have failed us in every single way. And when that happens, you essentially open the doors for an entirely conspiratorial worldview to consume, a whole political party. And that's what happened, because there were conspiracies during the pandemic that we pointed out, and we were silenced and censored for asking questions about them. We being conservatives.
Okay.
I was part of this. I was part of this group of people. I was part of the health freedom
And so you see how the fringes are reacting by throwing the baby out with the bathwater and basically saying, let's burn everything down.
Exactly. They're becoming much more conspiratorial. So they look at everything through the lens of conspiratorialism now, which lends itself towards anti-Semitism. Obviously, they're going to get to the Holocaust if they're looking for, taboo reasons to explain why things are happening.
Okay, so you see a conservative movement that identifies government political overreach or shady dealings behind the scenes and has then said, whoa, everything behind the scenes must be shady. And if everything behind the scenes is shady, then the Jews must be the ones who are up to it. Basically.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, because they are looking for reasons to explain why things are the way they are in society. And if they're open to conspiracies, then they're going to start looking for that. Or, those are the things that the algorithm is going to send them, or that are going to come up in their Google searches. And so they're going to be hit with all of the classic medieval, ancient, Jew-hating tropes, conspiratorial tropes that are just regurgitated for the next generation. They're going to come across all of it, and that is going to be absorbed in their already conspiratorial worldview. And for the youth during the pandemic, that was confined to screens, right? That was confined to learning, behind a computer, and, did not have the luxury like we did of growing up with like social human interaction, right? For 4 years, this is a critical development time for so many young people. And they were forced to learn through screens instead of looking people in the eyes, instead of picking up, actual books. They got obsessed with social media memes, right? And TikTok. And this also lends itself to what you're talking about, that they are angry now. They are enraged, and they're looking for somebody to blame. Why? Because when you're addicted to screens, you're not actually getting the oxytocin that you need for proper development. Oxytocin, it's kind of like dopamine, right? It's a love drug, but you can only get it through, it's not like dopamine, which you can get through screens, because you can only get it through actual in-person interaction or hearing somebody's voice or looking somebody in the eye, right? So they're devoid of oxytocin, right? But they imagine that they're getting all their needs met because they're getting their sexual needs met through porn as they're developing into maturity and going through puberty, and they're getting their emotional needs met through Snapchat and text message because they're constantly online and connected with people, but these are not actually real. So they're still all depressed and anxious and a lot of them suicidal. And so then they're over medicated and they go on Adderall and antidepressants, and they don't stand a chance. I mean, this system has so corrupted. Everything in the pandemic has just accelerated this corruption of the youth. And so, of course, they're going to be looking for somebody to blame for their anger and their rage, and they're looking for scapegoats. And who do they find? They find these podcasters that are playing into their worst instincts. Exactly the opposite of who Charlie Kirk was. Charlie Kirk would have looked at these young people that are understandably angry, and he would have said, "You are not victims. You are not victims of the system. You are not victims of the Jews. You have an opportunity to channel that rage into something positive, into hard work, labor, right? Find love in labor, right? Find a family, find a community, have kids, right? Find your faith, right?" These are the things that he would have been saying to the youth, and he did say when he was still alive. But now he's not here. And so instead you have people like Tucker Carlson and Candace Owens saying, you are victims. which is exactly what the left embraces, a whole victimhood culture, right? Now the right's doing the same thing. You are victims. You should be angry, and you need to find the people that are responsible for who did this to you, and you need to tear them down. And that is the government, and that is the Jews, and the Zionists, and the Indians, and women, and whoever else they've decided to blame.
It's like, the two little, the angel and the devil in the cartoons that sit on your shoulders. Charlie Cook was appealing to their better angels, okay?
Exactly.
And then you've got the Tuckers and the Candaces who are appealing to their worse angels. And now Charlie Cook is gone, and that's just removed this entire bulwark to the American conservative youth drifting to the far right. I actually have an idea what I think we should do about the American conservative youth who are treating Israel and Jews as scapegoats. I think we have a way to transform Jews and Israelis into role models in their minds. I think we need to take Israeli vets, army vets from special forces units to America, to conservative communities to teach them Krav Maga, Israeli martial arts. And we can call it Krav Maga.
Oh my God, I love that.
Okay, if you have anyone who wants to fund this idea.
Did you just come up with this
No,
right now?
no, I've been sitting on it for a while.
This is a really good idea.
We can call it Krav Maga, and you can get like burly Israeli special forces guys who are proper badass to help these young men channel their rage through, in a healthy way, self-defense, in a way that defines Jews and Israelis as role models rather than scapegoats.
It's a fantastic idea because
Krav Maga.
Unfortunately, you have a whole manosphere culture that is teaching these people a completely erroneous version of what masculinity is, right? They are teaching these kids that actually like alpha males need to be triumphant and dominant over women, or in the case of Nick Fuentes, like he's saying, like it's actually gay to be married, and let's face it, a lot of these like gripper manosphere types are like undeniably homosexual. Like that is something that a lot of us have pointed out as certain certain text messages have been leaked or pictures have been, Facebook photos have been uncovered. It's like, okay, there's something very psychological going on here with these people when they are taking such a misogynistic stance against women, and the way that they categorize male-female relationships, it's so childish. It's like formulaic, like game theory or something like that. It's ridiculous. So yes, we need positive role models in their life, and it's such a shame that these people have been so turned off by Israel, and they don't realize how much Israel can be a role model for conservatives, not just in the ways that you're saying. You're talking about like the warrior mentality, which is still valued here, which is absolutely something that needs to be cultivated. But in other ways too, the fact that Israel is having more babies than any other developed country, right? Conservatives they're natalists, and they're very worried about that. They're very worried about the declining birth rates, and they want to, and they're anti-abortion, and they want to convince people to have more children, right? They're very family focused. Like these are values of the Jewish state of Israel: community, family, right? That a lot of these values have been lost in the West. I mean, Europe's cooked when it comes to this stuff, right? The religious character of this country, right? Conservatives are deeply devout people when it comes to their faith. And they should look to Israel in terms of a model nation and a model society in a lot of ways. But unfortunately, they are fed Hasbara talking points, honestly, about Israel having the biggest gay pride parade in the Middle East, right? Like, you think conservatives care about that?
That doesn't help.
So honestly, I mean, the whole like Hasbara model for doing advocacy is just like, it's completely like, it's just lost on
Let's pause that thought. I want to talk solutions in just a little bit, and how because the Krav Maga idea was like semi in jest, but if anyone's serious about it, let's talk.
I think we should do it.
Okay. Let's talk afterwards. the horseshoe, okay? How are you seeing I saw a while ago Tucker Carlson interviewing Cenk Uygur, he with the sweaty forehead, and promoting dropshite news, I call it, which is openly pro-Hamas.
It's Marxist.
Openly Marxist, pro-Hamas. And here you have Tucker Carlson promoting it as a reliable source of news. Anti-Semitism is always the easiest way to spot the horseshoe theory.